So, Kim, you spend a lot of time in the fundraising world, and I think a lot of people in our audience might find that interesting getting into fundraising. It seems to me, though, that there's probably a lot of skills that one would need to be a good fundraiser. So maybe you could talk to us about, for people that are interested in getting into that field, what are some of the skills one might need to acquire to be good at fundraising?
Sure, sure. So fundraising, there's so many different categories, and I think individual, business, community, and I think it's important to learn the value of each when you think about fundraising. There's different methods like grant writing, events, and peer-to-peer giving, corporate sponsorship, and of course, individual philanthropy. So I think it's important to understand those. Each organization will probably have a portfolio that's diverse, that has a little bit peppered in of each of those. But some are, rely on federal grants, and those require partnerships. That's why it's so important for any nonprofit to really have strong partnerships in any community that they're in. And nonprofits are, I think it behooves people to have, as a fundraiser, the CFRE, which is the Certified Fundraising Executive Investment. Those folks really very easily get hired, and it's a reputable thing to have for any fundraiser, both in the United States and abroad, because you really do get that vast understanding. So it's costly, but it is worth the investment. And then every 3 years you become recertified. So that's kind of one of the major things. I don't have the CFRE, but it's on my agenda. So, but learning from all these different organizations that I've been with has really contributed to that. It's really just that stamp of approval to say, okay, you understand this, you've been able to apply it, and the whole world, nonprofit world, thinks you can too. You can work anywhere. I would say the other thing is, because we're constantly with people or corporate partners or community builders, you have to listen. These
Mhm.
folks that we're storytellers, but we also have to be great listeners and understand the audience, and who we're speaking with, and especially in individual philanthropy, remembering birthdays, anniversaries, milestones. Sending a little handwritten note. People don't do that anymore, but it's just so appreciated. And then it builds that bond with your donor, with your corporate partner, with all these folks. And that's really all it's about. It's about relationships and how well we know one another.
Gotcha.
Um, I would say that attributes to your storytelling. Storytelling is, understanding the mission of an organization, the vision, knowing your numbers. You really have to understand your budget, how much your funding contributes to your overhead costs, your employee costs to really fundraise. I think it's 80-20. If you spend 80 cents on fundraising, 20 cents for your overhead, et cetera. That's pretty standard in the industry right now. If you can get it lower, oh, your funders go crazy, because then they know their money is well spent.
Sure, sure.
And you want to be, understanding who are you serving?
Mhm.
How well are you serving these folks? And is anyone better off by what you do? I mean, it's so important, again, to go back to your audience of funders, but then your audience of, the folks that you're serving. So it's really understanding, and sometimes that takes a while.
Yeah. A follow-up question. Half a follow-up question, because I wanted to ask you what kind of person would be good in the fundraising, and you've started answering that with, you have to be a good listener.
Right.
You need to be a good storyteller. You need to
Right.
weave a narrative well, talk to people, communication skills, obviously. You need to be pretty good with numbers, to know the bottom line, to be able to talk numbers with people. What about things like, is there a lot of, do you have to have a thick skin in terms of, is there a lot of no's? Do you have to be okay with uh being, hung up on, let's say, or just
Rejection.
rejection? Do you have to have a thick skin for to be good at fundraising?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's such a great question. I always say this about, because I was in the corporate world for 16 years, and then flipped over to the nonprofit sector after my kids were in school, and I saw this need for fundraising. So, in the corporate world, you need that thick skin. In the nonprofit world, you do too, because it's so competitive. People don't really understand that it's probably more competitive, especially in Fairfield County, with over 10,500 nonprofit organizations in Fairfield County alone.
Right.
So I think that, thick skin and creative hindsight, you really have to plan, and then you have to be better than everyone else. So I think folks don't understand that it's a nonprofit, but it's still a business, right? And so you've got to have this backbone, and you have to have very skilled and trained folks, just like you do in the for-profit. So I think, people get all fuzzy and warm about nonprofit work, which they should. But I also think that we don't get enough credit as far as understanding that we are a business. And at the end of the day, the folks we serve and how many we serve and how well we serve them is really how we're measured against everyone else.
Right. Thank you.
Sure.
Sounds great. What I'm getting from it is, again, a good listener, the ability to tell a good story, maybe tell a good story with money involved, with numbers involved, and not be boring and not lose people. A little bit of tenacity, a little bit of thick skin could make you a good fundraiser if you
Absolutely.
wanted to pursue that avenue.
Yeah.
If you're good at it, you could really make a difference because you could get people the funding that they need. And it must be a very satisfying thing to be able to get organizations money to hire people and do great things. So,
Oh, yeah.
hey, thank you for that. If anyone's out there that might want to get into fundraising, I think these are great points, and connect with Kim if you want to maybe ask her some more questions. Would that be okay?
Absolutely. I'd be
Awesome.
happy to.
Good. Thanks for that.